Things got very emotional on Capitol Hill today. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett really challenged Republicans on this issue and said so many Democrats were disturbed by this woman being gunned down, and Republican response is pretty much callous and indifferent.
It is so hard to sit here sometimes because I didn't come to Congress to write laws or to do things that are hurting people. I'm just asking if there's any decency or heart or courage on that side of the aisle. The fact that a woman was killed, she was shot in her head, and y'all are pretending like nothing happened. I remember when Charlie Kirk got killed. Do you remember what our response was? Our response wasn't to sit there and pretend like it was okay. Is it okay because you have a badge? Because the last time I checked, allegedly no one is above the law. Can y'all not just have a little bit of courage and humanity? A child. A child has lost her mom. And y'all want to pretend that it is okay. I am asking if there is anyone that will stand for the very people that elected us and sent us to Congress. You tell us things like, well, the immigrants are bad. And so we got to get all these bills because the immigrants are the ones that are causing the harm. They're bringing the crime. The mayor of Minneapolis told y'all to get the fuck out. Yet y'all are the ones, it is this administration that is bringing crime to their streets. That's what's happening.
It's the third incident where somebody has dropped an F-bomb in this committee, including the video.
I'm sorry.
Including the video that we had to watch earlier.
Are your princess ears okay?
Is it profanity?
Well,
your princess ears
the House of Representatives.
The committee. You are about the fact that a woman.
Are you soft?
House of Representatives.
The gentlelady.
Are we offending your princess ears? Are they that soft?
All members will.
Maybe some of the kids out there.
Mr. Chairman, it is the gentlelady's
You're killing
time.
them.
Kids.
It is the gentlelady's time. Let's let her have her time.
It is the gentlelady's time. Would you stop the clock for a moment? Okay, and I'll restore that. The chair will remind all members that the person controlling the time is not to be unreasonably interrupted. We would further admonish that whenever possible to express the full meaning of something, it be done so without an expletive that may be offensive to people here in the audience or those who watch this on television. I understand that a quote at times is essential, but I would admonish everyone that it has been the practice of this committee for the many years I've been here to use such things as F-bomb in order to get the message out without actually using the word. Notwithstanding that, the gentlelady will be recognized for this time plus an additional 20 seconds. The gentlelady may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Long story short, we are sitting in judiciary and no one on that side of the aisle seems to care that this particular person, whose name we don't know at this point, became the judge, jury, and executioner. I don't know how you square that. And then we're sitting here literally in markup for a bail funds bill. When I first ran for office, it was in the midst of yet another lynching by law enforcement in Minneapolis. At that time, it was George Floyd. I remember working as a pro bono criminal defense attorney to help protesters that were being arrested. There were more than 600 protesters that were arrested in Dallas. There were churches that came together to make sure that there were bail funds. There were nonprofit organizations, and to explain how it works for bail, since we're in judiciary and we're writing the laws, and some people may not understand this, but those bail funds, those nonprofit organizations are not the ones that determine whether or not somebody gets bail. What they do is they help out poor people, which I know y'all are not interested in either, but they help out people that aren't rich and famous and have limitless amounts of money, like all of the Epstein defendants who somehow y'all can't find, even though y'all went and got Maduro. But it helps out those people to be able to get out of jail. Many of those people that if they spend just a couple of days in jail will then be thrust into straight up poverty because they will lose everything. Why it is that you want to criminalize people such as churches that are trying to help the poor because they understand what the Bible says, and they don't just say that they understand it or say that they love Jesus, but they decide that they actually put it into works because faith without works is dead. That is wrong too. And I'm here to tell you that there's going to be a lot of nonprofit organizations that are going to step up in this moment, because there are going to be protests around this entire country because of the state-sanctioned execution that we all saw unfold, unless there is some kind of justice that takes place and we get the name of that officer and that officer is prosecuted. So I ask that law enforcement, we have oversight over them. I am the oversight ranker. Let's go ahead. In fact, I make a motion that we have a hearing in the oversight subcommittee as it relates to this particular issue and what took place.
House Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. This has angered so many different people in so many different ways. And former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura is weighing in, saying he is so pissed off with what's going on that he actually may run again for governor. And he had a lot to say to Donald Trump. Check this out.
No audio.
All right, so I got to again having some slight audio issues. I'll fix that. But Ventura, he called Trump a rich white boy and said we're living in a third world country. So I have that video for you in just a second. I want to bring in my panel right now. No, they can't wait to weigh in, and so let me welcome to the show, as we always do on Thursdays, Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University. Glad to have Greg back. First time in 2026. Greg, good to see you. Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show, Sirius XM Radio. Glad to have you on the show as well. Dr. Nola Haynes, of course, Georgetown University School of International School of Foreign Service. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Let me start with you, Reese. It's been a whole lot that's been going on. It's just been literally crazy what has been happening. And just as Adam said, the lies have been coming just full tilt from these wackos in this administration. But that's what they do. They're following the liar in chief. He lies, they lie, and they say, what the hell? And MAG is so dumb, they believe the lies.
Well, yeah, I mean, they want us to believe in alternate reality. And what they should really do is be embarrassed. We know that this administration has no shame, but typically you would hear measured responses out of DHS, out of the White House. If you didn't have degenerates running the country, you have Beavis and Butthead, Ren and Stimpy, and I can't even think of an insult for Christy. No, she's just a bitch. And so you have these people of very low moral character who are essentially saying that white lives don't matter. Because this was a white woman who was a U.S. citizen who was gunned down by a person who has zero jurisdiction over U.S. citizens. ICE is not law enforcement. And that is something that I want every single Democrat to repeat. And that is something that I want the media to make very clear. ICE is not law enforcement. ICE is immigration enforcement. Immigration enforcement does not have jurisdiction over American citizens. They do not have jurisdiction to dictate a traffic stop. They do not have jurisdiction to pull somebody out of their vehicle. And they for fuck sure do not have jurisdiction or immunity to shoot a woman in the head as she's driving away. This ICE agent escalated the situation by stepping in front of the vehicle, by trying to physically assault Renee, and then he turned around and murdered her in cold blood. And as opposed to doing the proper thing, which is say that there will be a thorough investigation, there will be accountability, and trying to distance themselves, they are cheerleading it on because they want to empower their white nationalist vigilante militia to go around and targeting anybody. And if you're a white person that gets away with their white nationalist agenda, then your ass is grass too. That's why I've been calling this Trump crow.
And we have
That's why I've been calling this Trump crow, because it is not just an attack on Black citizenship. It is an attack on every American that does not fall in line with the white nationalist billionaire trillionaire agenda. And unfortunately, a woman who is a mother who now leaves orphans behind has paid the ultimate price. She was not a radical. She was not a terrorist, which apparently now all of a sudden they recognize terrorism after just rewriting history on January 6th a couple days ago. Now all of a sudden they want to say that a person is escalating it, as opposed to when they were blaming the cops in January 6th a couple days ago. So there's no intellectual consistency. The only thing that's consistent in here is cruelty is the point, depravity is the point, and white power is the point.
What we're witnessing here, Noah, is simple, and that is what Trump wants. He wants the TV show. This is all about a television show. It's all about this is a live version of 48 Hours. The media budget for ICE is crazy. They got their own cinematic cameras there, and they're dropping all of their creative videos. And so what they're saying to their white base, look at us. We are rounding these people up and throwing them out of the country. That's what all this is about. And listen, Fox News is driving the propaganda arm, conservative talk radio, the digital people. That's what all this is. It is all about driving this whole notion, this idea that we are running these brown people out of the country. And so you name it. So whether you are Somali, any African nation, if you are Venezuelan, Mexican, whatever, we're running these people out because we want this to be for us. It is absolutely about whiteness.
Absolutely. It is performative strength. And this is what happens when you get a reality star rolling down the escalator, announcing his presidential aims and goals. And so we have not left this horrible, horrible reality show that we are all forced not just to watch, but to also participate in. And, I want to say something about the way that this administration, not just Trump 2.0, but also Trump 1.0, the way in which he uses terrorism as a legal justification for enacting whatever sort of crude national security foreign policy this regime has in mind. And one of the reasons why I say that this is performative, and to your point, Roland, when you look at statistics, the amount of folks that are being sent out of the country, the numbers are actually not that far apart from the last administration. So all of this performance, all of this fear of having the ICE officers in their gear, and their guns and all of this stuff, it is definitely meant to scare communities into compliance, right? These are not the acts of leaders who are America first, because they shot an American in cold blood in her face for us all to see. And for the folks that were so worried about Jasmine Crockett dropping the F-bomb, how do you think those kids felt when they saw all those videos on TikTok and Instagram? Because when I first saw that video yesterday, there was no warnings. Those kids that congressman was so worried about hearing the F-bomb saw that lady get shot in her face and in her head. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about the kids seeing. I could care less if Jasmine Crockett is dropping the F-bomb in Congress. More F-bombs need to be dropped in Congress. All of this is so upsetting, Roland. My week started off with the 1-6 hearings on the Hill. They were emotional. I sat there and I watched Nancy Pelosi the entire time, Roland. I watched this woman sit there for hours while she listened to testimony, while she testified. And that woman got up there and she said, I still pray for Donald Trump. This man who has done everything in his power to make her life a living hell and the rest of us, our lives a living hell. So all of this is taking a collective toll. And that's what I felt from Jasmine Crockett today.
But,
She
but
said what we wanted to say.
but the whole thing here, Greg, is again, it is this. That's also by design. It is to completely this is sensory overload. So whether it is this, it is Venezuela. It's everything that they're doing, every policy decision, Doge, the cuts, all of this sort of stuff. It is saying we're going to wreck all of this. And I was texting an anchor, was texting someone who works for a network, and this person was saying how this is so hard for mainstream media to keep up. I said, no, actually, it's not. I said, because if you got these 24-hour networks. I'm like, y'all can talk about more than 2 or 3 things on one day. Like, we don't have to have every show talk about the exact same thing every hour for the whole day. And that's part of the deal. And so they know how media works. And so the morning shows, and the show at 9 a.m. and at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. and noon and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the primetime shows are going to be talking about the exact same story in the same way, as opposed to examining all of these different facets and how these people are undermining the Constitution, undermining democracy, how they are attacking different people. And one of the greatest failures to what we see is a media that absolutely is abhorrent. You've got people who are whoring themselves to do the bidding of Donald Trump. You got these corporate interests who are all about their stock price and their other deals and their theme parks and their packaging companies and all that sort of stuff. They don't care. And so you used to have caretakers in media. The Sulzbergers of the New York Times and Catherine Graham at the Washington Post. And you had Paley at CBS. You had people, Golderson at ABC and Sarnoff at NBC, people who believe in the public trust. These folks kind of like, yeah, we don't want him looking at us because he's going to criticize us.
That's right. That's right, Roland. Is my sound okay? Can you all hear?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. Just want to check. I'm very much encouraged by these events. Not encouraged, of course, by the death of Miss Good. That's a true tragedy. When you think about her, we may look back at this and put her in the same breath as Viola Louiso or in Alabama, or Andrew Goodman or Mickey Schwerner. Sometimes, unfortunately, white death is a trigger. And of course, this happened around a mile from where Big George Floyd, of course, lost his life. But let's be crystal clear about this. Let me start with our Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Please don't cry. That's what they want. There's no reason to cry. There's no reason to cry because these are not human beings you're dealing with. There's nothing to appeal to. So let's get out of this whole idea that we can appeal to some greater moral sense. You just heard a purebred clown, a racist, tell the New York Times, the pliant New York Times, that the world now bends to his morality. Donald Trump doesn't have any morality. It's an oxymoron. What we have to do now is reframe the narrative. So I think
Greg, just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. I want you to finish that. This is from ABC News. And so 2 people have been shot by federal agents in Portland. It says 2 people were shot by federal agents in Portland, Oregon on Thursday. Local and federal sources told ABC News the FBI is responding to the scene. Federal agents involved in the shooting are with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, not Immigration and Customs Enforcement, according to sources. Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Roland. And of course they were, and there will be more. There will be more. They will join an indefensible piece of a human being, a little man whose little tiny manhood sheathed by cloth over the top third and bottom 2/3 of his face. Jonathan Ross, as it is now being reported, USA Today, among other media sources over the last couple of hours, have reported that the enforcement operations officer identified the killer of Miss Good is named Jonathan Ross. And this isn't the first time that he has assaulted other people. And this doesn't have anything to do with citizenship either, y'all. Let's stop using that. Let's stop reframing this in terms of it was a U.S. citizen. It was a human being. Let's just level set on that. But what I really want to, us to spend a moment on, which is, again, why this platform is so important and why you should turn off all that commercial news, mass media entertainment crap, is this. This is all part of a larger strategy, as we said, not just to intimidate, not just to cow, but to set a set of forces in motion so that the response can then trigger another response. Let's go to the beer drinking Brett Kavanaugh on the United States Supreme Court, part of the MAGA 6. We saw a couple of weeks ago in the Trump versus Illinois case where they said you can't use the National Guard. Kavanaugh wrote a concurrence separately. By the way, he also snuck a little footnote in his concurrence to say that you shouldn't be racially profiling. That's because he's mad because remember that case back in September, the Nome case, Nome versus Vasquez Perdomo, where he said you can racially profile, thereby leading to a label that apparently he hates, which is why I'm going to repeat it now. We should burn it into our vocabulary. Kavanaugh stops. That's what they're doing now. You know, I'm going to stop you because you look a certain way. The Kavanaugh stops. He hates it. We'll go to hell, Bill Kavanaugh, Beer Kavanaugh. But he wrote a concurrence to slip in something they're going to bring back around. And that is, even as the Supreme Court said 6-3, they weren't going to pause the injunction that won't allow Donald Trump to put the National Guard in Illinois and Oregon and California. Kavanaugh wrote separately and said, but, you know, maybe there might be a way to evoke, I don't know, the Insurrection Act. See, what they want to do is put the U.S. military in these cities because they are engaged in a domestic war, finally. Let's pay particular attention to the fact that this strategy is designed completely pursuant to what that fool Steve Bannon said years ago: flood the zone with ish. In other words, we are now severing any ties with a standard that relies on facts. So what you hear, the Ice Barbie, the Botox Barbie cosplaying with her cowboy hat on, and then today continuing it saying is, there is no such thing as facts. What you hear that little Nazi cretin Stephen Miller doing is saying that there is no such thing as facts. Kill everybody you want. They're all drug dealers. They're sexual deviants. They're messing with children. And then when you say, no, they're not, here's the evidence. They're like, yes. And let me say again, they're messing with children. We have to now change the narrative. Congresswoman Crockett, don't cry. Call them what they are, Klansmen, Nazis, and let's roll over their political backs and crush those political backs. You can't, the rhetoric of reason has no place in this. This is a war. They have declared war on human beings. And the response in a war is to fight back.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.